time, and I'll be doing my persuasive speech. Before I begin, I'd like to show you my audience. Every person in this world has a choice they can make to save a person's life or not. According to organ donations, don't let these myths confuse you, by the Mayo Clinic staff, there are over 100,000 people in the U.S. that's on the organ transplant list waiting for a match that could possibly change their life. Donate Life America explains that an organ donation is a process of giving an organ or a part of an organ for the purpose of transplantation into another person. This definition may scare you away from being a donor because it's strange to think of your organs going into someone else. But what if you knew that one person could save up to 8 lives by becoming an organ donor? Having an older brother that was born with a heart condition has made me realize that becoming an organ donor is very important to me and my family. Also, studying in the medical field has made me want to save more lives as I can, and this is an easy way for people to help out. As the rate of candidates needing organ transplants increase faster than the rate of organ donors, I feel that it is important more now than ever that everyone should consider being an organ donor. And to demonstrate that, I got this graph from organdonor.gov. And the bottom line is the number of donors, which in 2009 was 14,630. This middle line is the number of transplants, which was 28,463. And this top line, which is the number of people needing transplants, is 105,567. Many people, maybe including yourself, have let these myths of organ donation flood into their mind, but there are 3 major reasons that a person should become an organ donor. According to Organ Donations, Don't Let These Myths Confuse You, by the Mayo Clinic staff, many people have the assumption about organ donations. Some people think that becoming an organ donor, if you become an organ donor, then the doctors won't try to save your life. But that isn't true. The doctors try to save their patients' lives first, and then someone else's life. Another myth people believe is that they'll still be alive when they are pronounced dead, which isn't true either. An organ donor actually gets extra tests at no cost to the family to make sure that they are dead before they get more tests than any other people would. Another false assumption about donating organs is that rich and famous people get put to the top of the list. According to the Transplant Living website, there is a process which the organs are matched, and it doesn't take account if you're rich or famous. Under the contract with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Service and Resource Administration, the United Network for Organ Sharing has a centralized computer system that can be accessed at all times. This computer system is linked to all of the transplant hospitals in the country, and it is not based on how rich or famous you are. Next, the system generates a ranked list based on the amount of time people have on the waiting list, with the characteristics they got from the candidate and the donor. After a candidate is found who is healthy enough to undergo surgery, the transplant takes place immediately. The most important and obvious reason for an organ donor is the opportunity to save people's lives. According to organdonor.gov, every day, 79 people in the U.S. receive an organ transplant, but 18 people die waiting on the list. In the year 2013, 28,953 organ transplants were completed. That may seem like a lot of transplants, but that number does not stand up to the 122,982 people that are waiting on the list. And out of those 122,982, 75,958 of them are multicultural patients, which means that this growing population of different ethnic groups, such as African Americans, Asians, Native Americans, and Hispanics really need to become donors because these groups have a higher chance of developing a chronic disease. And if you have these groups donate, they are a better chance of matching them than just normal Americans are. Not only does donating organs save candidates' lives, but in a way it saves a donor's life as well. According to the Mayo Clinic staff, many families have said that knowing that their lost loved ones has helped other people has made it easier for them to deal with the loss. Imagine if you were a parent and had a child that died just a little over a year old. Well, one family did experience that tragic loss, and they shared their story through the Colby Foundation, which they named after their son Colby. When Colby was 14 months old, he was left unattended in a bathtub by a babysitter, and he drowned. When the doctors asked if they wanted to donate their son's organs, it only took minutes for John and Starla, Colby's parents, to agree with the donations. Little Colby saved 3 lives. He saved a 27-year-old man who received both of his kidneys, a 2-year-old girl with a transplant of his liver, and last, he saved a 5-month-old boy who received his heart. Colby's parents reached out to the families that received Colby's organs, and the family that responded was the family of the 5-month-old boy, whose name was Braden. They decided to meet together when Braden was 3 years old. And when John and Starla arrived at the airport, Braden ran to Starla's hugged her so tight, and gave her a white rose. Now they've been friends ever since. Colby's story and other stories of hope can be found on the Colby Foundation website. The donation of organs also gives hope to families of the donors. John and Starla gained hope and a new meaning of Colby's life. And this is just one story of many that show how a person can stretch into other many people's lives and make a difference. And this right here is a picture of Colby on his first birthday. So, becoming an organ donor can ultimately have a powerful impact on lives of others, and yet it's a quick and easy process to do. According to the Mayo Clinic staff, many people say that they don't qualify to become a donor. But no matter what age, race, gender, or even some medical conditions you have, you can be a donor. Also, being a donor costs nothing to the donor or the donor's family. To become a donor, a person can do one of these things. They can sign up on their state's registry. They can choose to be an organ donor on their driver's license. They can carry a donor card and sign it, or they could tell his or her family. A person can also be a living donor too. Becoming a living donor takes more time and has careful considerations to make sure the person will not have psychological and physical defects of their body if they donate. But being a living donor does not change your life expectancy, and you'll be able to witness the difference you have made, according to Donate Life America. The most common living transplant is a kidney, and the kidney left in the donor will slightly enlarge due to the work that both of the kidneys had done before. This lets the donor live a happy and normal life. And liver, lung, and pancreas donations can be made as living donors as well. Like I said in the beginning, having an older brother that was born with a congenital heart disease made me realize that being an organ donor is an important role everyone should play. My parents found out that his heart was not like any normal heart a few weeks after he was born. Essentially, he has a two-chamber heart instead of a 4-chamber heart, and his 2 major arteries were switched. So that means in this diagram is a picture of his heart, and this ventricle was not developed, and these 2 were switched, which created the oxygenated blood to only go from his heart to his lungs and back to his heart. And the only way that he's getting oxygen into his body was through a hole in his heart between the chambers. He has had 9 heart surgeries in his lifetime and is now a healthy 28-year-old. However, someday he may need a transplant. The more donors there are, the more chance of a match there will be. You never know what's going to happen to you in the future, and you may need an organ transplant. That is why everybody should become an organ donor, because you may have the favor returned to you in the end. During the time it took for you to listen to this speech, another person has probably been added to the organ donor transplant list. According to organdonor.gov, every 10 minutes someone is added to the list. That means every 10 minutes a person and their family start to lose hope. Becoming a donor can turn a terrible tragedy into a positive outcome, such as Colby's story did. The rate of candidates needing organ transplant is not going to slow down, but if more and more people become donors each day, we can catch up. By signing up today, you can save lives in the future and maybe have your own life saved as well.